Good afternoon, everyone. I cordially welcome you all for the second lecture of the short course on cultural linkages towards an Asian ideology. Today, we are focusing on the impact of globalization on economic linkages towards Asian ideology, special reference to Sri Lanka. The agenda for today is such that the lecture is scheduled to be for 45 minutes with a short break of 5 minutes, followed by another 30 minutes of the lecture and a question and answer session. Ladies and gentlemen, may I now have the honor of introducing our guest lecturer, Professor M.G. Kularathne, Professor of Economics in the Faculty of Social Sciences at the University of Kelaniya. Our esteemed guest holds a bachelor's degree in economics with honors from the University of Peradeniya, a master's in science in socio-economic information for natural resources management from the International Institute for Aerospace Survey and Earth Sciences in the Netherlands, and a PhD in environmental economics from Queensland University of Technology in Australia. Professor Kularathne has many years of experience in university level teaching and research. In addition to his role as a professor at the University of Kelaniya, he holds and has held senior positions in projects such as the No Lanka Blue Project, the research project on developing master plans for pre-identified lagoon clusters by the Ministry of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources Development, and the project on rehabilitation of a section of the main line in the Sri Lanka Railways by the UN Habitat, to name a few. His current research work is mainly focused on efficiency and productivity analysis of water resources and use of solid waste in increasing primary production in Sri Lanka. So, we are deeply honored to have you present here with us, and we warmly welcome you to conduct this lecture on the impact of globalization on economic linkages towards Asian ideology, special reference to Sri Lanka. Thank you.
Thank you very much for giving a comprehensive introduction of me, and also I must thank to Dr. Hema for inviting me for this lecture the second time. To be with you guys for next couple of hours, maybe 1.5 hours, perhaps, assuming that time is permit me to go with you with the impact of globalization on economic linkages towards Asian ideology. And that's really interesting topics to be discussed, but I'm not going to discuss a little bit further difficult jargon, but you know, this comes under applied economics anyway, not the theoretical sort of economics. And because of this time limitation, I'm straight away jump into the lecture, and be comfortable with me for next 1.5 hours. And if you have any question, you can ask for the short answers, because time is limiting factor for me. But you know that having something, even in the short period of time, much better. Then, because I'm giving some points to think. I might lead you to think a little bit more than what I explained. That is the point of this short lectures, actually. And going to the next slides, I will show you that learning objectives, why I'm teaching, why we are discussing this topic today, to gain an understanding of the influence of globalized economic system. Or else we can call it as different names actually. But anyway, let's say that I wanted to make you understand how globalized economic system influence towards Asian ideology. And this is the content of this short course, a short lecture. I might introduce what it, very briefly what is the topic is about, and then Asian ideology on economic and economic development process. I'm happy to discuss this holistic system thinking and also collective action and lead into the spiritual development, maximize social benefits. And don't worry about that, I will explain one by one very freely. And the next one is free market ideology. And we are talking about Asian ideology. And we have to see that what is this free market ideology and what are the influences are made by it to our Asian ideology. And the next one is dissatisfaction with globalization in our part of the world. And also we want to look at, in special reference to Sri Lanka, what are the development decision-making process and how it influenced the Asian ideology with respect to this FMI. And finally, I conclude the session, some giving conclusion and some thoughts to you, think a little bit more. And what is Asian ideology of economic activities mainly developed through the holistic thinking to maximize social welfare or social benefits? What is holistic system thinking means? We are thinking with others. You know, the Buddhist culture, we always thinking of Ubayatta Samvattati. What is Ubayatta Samvattati mean? Not thinking myself, I have to think someone else as well. But globalized market, we also calling as a FMI, free market ideology. Economic activities promoted linear thinking to maximize individual benefits. Please try to understand what are the big difference between Asian ideology and MFI. That is, Asian ideology basically thinking of maximizing social welfare, while FMI for globalized market economics activities always promoting the maximizing individual benefits. That is what our conventional economics teach us. Even though we are living in Asia, the historical economics books written by Chanakya in India, we don't learn those things. Not known what the reason is about, but that is another influence of global market economic system for us. However, Asia is growing with cultural ideologies. Maybe when we are talking about Sri Lankans, Sri Lankan culture is developed through the Buddhism. And also it has Hinduism and other philosophies and religions. However, economy operates with liberal or neoliberal marketing system in South Asia as well as Southeast Asia. You know, that is another difference between this and that, because our ideology is very much religious based and we are thinking of in a holistic way, but we are operating in a liberal and neoliberal marketing system. And this can be clearly visualized if you are studying in Vietnam in economics, because Vietnam was a Marxism country many years ago, and now it's also a Buddhist country. Now it is converted into market economy. Now you can see how complications are there, but that is not happening in Sri Lanka, even though we are calling as a socialist, republic, democratic, or etc. country. Okay. So, however, dilemma of Asian ideology and FMI on development decision making in South Asia is a problematic factor. We are discussing further what this is happening and why is it happening. An Asian ideology on economic and economic development. You know that I'm taking one example from Sri Lanka to explain how holistic thinking, collective action, and lead into the spiritual development with maximizing social welfare. So, Asian ideology of economic activities mainly developed through the holistic thinking. As I said earlier, however, social benefits are promotion of local traditions, part of the promotion of local traditions, customs, and culture. The improvement of community image and pride. You know that we have two different institutions. Institutions and institute are two different things. Basically, institutions are calling as formal and informal institutions. Then the formal institutions are rules and regulations. They are written, okay? They are documented. But informal institutions are always comes under these traditions, customs, and culture. So we can't see them, but it is there, and they are influenced very much in decision making of us. So ideology is helping us to take a decision depending on our traditions, customs, and culture. So Asian ideology, very much, those economic activities are organized as a collective action. Collective action means when a number of people work together to achieve some common objective. We are calling it as a collective action. You may remember that in very near past, before 1977, people worked together on the roads, clearing reservoirs, and the public, whatever the public activities. People come together, they work because they expected to complete their common objectives. The good example is construction reservoirs in Sri Lanka. And according to Parker, he's saying that this is not for the self-benefit, that is for the future generation. So that is how common collective action were in Sri Lanka in many, many years. However, available resources in the country are used as a common property. What does common property mean? The property resources, common property resources are very much natural resources owned and managed collectively by a community or a society. I'm not sure whether you have an example in your mind, but in Sri Lanka, we can't see very much common property. But earlier we had, but still, we have some examples to take it out. That's an outstanding example for common property resources in Sri Lanka is village irrigation systems. Why we are calling them as a village irrigation system? Each and every village reservoirs related with a village, okay? And whatever the reservoirs you find in Sri Lanka, you will see that names are linked with the village. And do you know that the highest reservoir density is recording in Sri Lanka in the world? Because we have 2.5 hectares of water in every square kilometers. It's very happy to hear that. Like, that is always comes under Asian ideology, because earlier we were thinking of self-sufficiency. Even the King's period, they built reservoirs to maximize our social welfare. So the reservoir constructions is one of the biggest, one of the outstanding example pointing for this collective action the ideology. So I'm not sure, or maybe you are come across with this diagrams. Okay, look at these reservoir systems. Why I am taking this example? Just to show you that how our holistic system or a system thinking, or we should not live alone. We have to live with environment and the society and the other people. Okay. And if you look at those reservoirs, that this TTT is indicating for a tank. Actually, we don't have tank in Sri Lanka. We have, but that is not the reservoirs that we are referring. We also don't have lakes, because lakes are result of a glacier. So we have man-made reservoirs, but whatever the reservoirs we have, they are located as a cascade, because this is reservoir and this part is paddy field. Again, the outflow of this reservoir is flowing to next one. And that is how our cascade system in Sri Lanka is established. And can you see that our ideology and our technology, how it was organized, our landscapes very well to achieve our common goals. And even you can see that some micro catchment of each reservoirs, and also with around the cascade, we can see that the meso catchment. Okay, catchment is the area where water is collecting to the reservoir. If you take it out one reservoir in here, then you can see that this is what our reservoirs are. Actually, this is not the story of the reservoir. But I wanted to show you that, see that how our holistic ideology was working to maintaining our economic and arrive our common goals. And this reservoir, and this is water body, and that is the water, and which is growing fish is there. And this is the tank, the dam here, and the roads. And you can see that the paddy fields here, and the trees and everywhere, because that they really want to make the environmental sustainability and maintain in the forest, because those people who are living beside this area, somewhere in here, they need some forest product and also non-timber forest product. Because this system is taking care of all the environmental entities to be sustained. Okay, that is completely developed through the Asian ideology. And also you can see the same systems in South India as well. Of course, we can see those things in Kenya and also some other the African countries. And you can see that somewhere here, that is the where buffaloes are living. Okay, and this system you need to study a little bit more in later on. Okay, I can give you a reference. You can get the information, and or otherwise you can type it in the website. You can see that how this system is sustained. But still we have more than 10,000 such reservoirs in Sri Lanka, making us aware how our Asian ideology was in Sri Lanka. And are you clear with me, or do you have any problem of the sound and the way I am explaining? If you have any question, please let me know. I'm not worried about, because discussing is much better than teaching, because I can answer some of the questions you have. So if you are talking very fast, please let me know, okay? Because you know that this is not the competition, okay? And this is sharing experience between you and me. So therefore, please, it is your responsibility. If something is missing, please let me know. I know that I can't give a complete, comprehensive understanding of all these pictures, but I can give you some points to think a little bit more. Okay, so look at this system, and there is some main features of the holistic thinking. The one point is they are protected environmental sustainability. And with that, they protect the dam. You can see in this picture is missing, but there is a place called Kattakadu. Kattakadu means the area where seepage is protecting and giving some trees to birds. And also it is allowing some area for cultivation for the birds. You know that we are not thinking of us. We are thinking of the environment and the other animals in the environment. That is what I'm thinking, that the holistic thinking is not limited to individual maximization. Okay. So even there, in the last part of the end of these paddy fields, there is a place for buffalo as well. And you can see trees are everywhere, and which is supply some fruits and also nutrients to the paddy fields and the reservoirs where fish are living. And the trees everywhere, in the reservoirs, on the reservoir dam, streams, paddy fields, and the catchment area, you can see those things. Not even that, the organizing of these paddy fields are mainly used for paddy cultivation. We are calling it the rice farm. And the sharing system of the paddy fields are helping to social integrity, because each and everybody have some piece of land here. And in the further discussion, we can see that these paddy fields are divided into 3 parts, and each part have 1 plot of land for everybody, because due to the water deficit period, if this part is completely destroyed, but still people have another 2 sections. If these 2 sections destroyed, but still they have a 1 section of the reservoirs to get their food. And also water allocation and efficiency is very good, and it was very efficient, because if we have a time, I can show you another pictures of drawing some layout to show you that how this social integrity was maintaining of sharing the lands and the water allocation. And social sustainability was maintained through the water allocation and the land allocation and housing in the village for social protection. You know that the people were thinking we all should protect ourselves. And also it has ensured food security. In the next slide, I will show you that how food security was ensuring. But unfortunately, and over the last 50, 70 years in Sri Lanka, the food security were two dimensions. The first one is before 1977, we were self-sufficient with our cultivation. We produce, we eat, then we said that api wawalai api kanne okkoma raja kollo wage. So that completely changed with the market economy in 1977. Now you can buy everything in the market because we are importing. And a few months back, there were some restrictions of importation, but it's still food security is ensuring in the open economy. And also, you know that the reservoir, Dagab, and village was the one concept to maintain the spirituality of the people. And this is main features of the holistic thinking of an Asian ideology with special reference to Sri Lanka. Can you imagine how people worked together to maximize their necessities? And there were no competition. It was very peaceful time. In my childhood, I can remember that this was our own experience. And look at that, how ensuring food security in Asian mode of production. Mode of production means the way of producing. And we have a reservoir. And the reservoir is provide fisheries. Okay, we are calling it as either aquaculture or fisheries or wild fisheries or culture-based fisheries or whatsoever. Reservoir is providing water for fisheries. And the grazing land and non-timber forest product and all the other things provided by the forest. Actually, agriculture is defined as agriculture, crop farming, livestock, forest, and fisheries. So all these three, the four activities are provided by this system. And the livestock and cattle and goats and buffaloes, there were some places for them. Okay, and also they provide dairy products. And the fish are providing protein and other things. And the agriculture, rice farming is provide rice. See how this system is maintaining a sustainability and the spiritual development of under the Asian ideology. So maybe it is very brief discussion on that one, but I want to point it out that how Asian ideology is worked in their economic activities, organizing environment and the human being to maintain in the social, environmental, and economic sustainability. But with respect to that, on the contrary, we can see that what is this FMI and economic development? FMI, pre-market ideology. Keep in mind that I'm referring FMI is free market ideology, and we got that in after 1977. And what and how under that ideology is organizing economy, and what are the sort of influences we receive to distort the Asian ideology. Okay, are you all right? Is anybody can answer whether you can hear me very well?
Yes, sir, you can be heard well.
Very good. Now, free market ideology is a part of the capitalism, not the part, it's a full operational level in capitalism. The capitalism is economic distribution and production are owned by private entities and accumulated profit. As is Dhanavadi, whether we like or not. So private ownership as opposed to government ownership. And the private ownership is ensuring capitalism. Therefore, the capitalism is encouraged by globalization. So what is globalization nowadays? I'm going to very briefly explain that one. The globalization is free trade, no tariff at all, the free flow of capital, goods, labor, and service. And you know that when King Gajaba went to India, they bring 12,000 people from India. That may be a part of the globalization at that time. But again, in the British, they bring some laborers from India for states in Sri Lanka. That also might be a globalization anyway. And we got capital from England, labor from India. We send our profit to as a wage to India, and the profit to England back. So the globalization is not something new for Sri Lanka. It was practicing for many years, actually. So anyway, globalization and the assimilation of national economies into one huge international economy via foreign direct investment. And also we are migrating. You know that how many people in Sri Lanka, how many people who are educated in Sri Lanka is migrated from the other countries. Because after 1977, many people went abroad. Some of them are in the Middle East, and many of them are in Europe and Australia, maybe Canada and America. And also trade. Trade has no boundaries, and the capital flow. So therefore, it seems like globalization it spawns capitalism, and it has a direct link with globalization and capitalism. So basically, capitalism is promoting market economy. I'm not going to discuss about the economic theory, how capitalism was developed, but it's still, that is where we are now. So furthermore, the world is towards an interdependent, integrated global economic system. This is the problem actually we have. You know that the interdependent world is very serious in a global economic system under FMI. Because globalization refers to the shift towards more integrated and interdependent world economy, including two factors, two areas, mainly. One is globalization of market, another one is globalization of production. Very simply, it is free flow of capital, goods, labor, and service, as well as technology across the international boundaries. We are playing with the globalization result. Now you see that our technology is not our own. We are always downloading. We are never ever uploading. And even though we upload in our own language, there are no people to read it. So they ask us to download. You know what we are downloading? We are downloading free market ideology. But there is no way to upload the Asian ideology. So that is what I told you, that there are a lot of things to think with this limited time. And globalization of markets, what is that means? You know that we have a lot of restrictions with the other countries. Sometimes we are banning our garments production. Why? They are saying that your human rights are violating. So therefore, we don't allow you to export your production. So this kind of warning is damaging our Asian ideology. So globalization of market refers to the merging of historically distinct and separate national market into one huge global marketplace. You can buy the things from eBay, but you never know from where it comes from. And you can see the trader, but the transaction is there. So that is how globalized market is working. And any particular country, you can buy anything which is growing in Asia, because global market is that much expanding. So therefore, it is no longer makes sense to talk about German market or American market or Sri Lankan market, because in London, you can get the Sri Lankan tea. Still, they are saying made in Ceylon, because Ceylon is popular name in England than Sri Lanka. And even they don't like Sri Lanka because their name is Ceylon. And they are very proud of that, having that country as their colony. So instead, there is the global market. Fall in trade barriers make it easier to sell globally. There is no very much trade barriers. You know that there are some regional cooperation, and we are exporting things to India. Sometimes we don't have such trade barriers. Tariffs are very much released. And next one is consumer taste and preference are converting. Sometimes in these days, people are in a long queue to buy the milk powder. Unfortunately, our cows has no milk, and even it seems that our mothers also are lacking milk for their kids. No breastfeeding anymore. I don't know why. In that cues are showing us that how we are interdependent on the world market. That is what I'm telling you. We are talking, we are here discussing not something new. That is exactly what is happening in the outside of the house. And farms promote the trend by offering the same basic products worldwide. The firms is one production unit. They promote trend by offering the same basic products worldwide. Okay. And then globalization of production refers to the sourcing of goods and services from location around the globe to take advantage of national differences in the cost and quality of factors of production like land, labor, and capital. I know there is a small factory in some in Kadava. We are calling it as a DEM collective. It's a garment factory. The whole production goes to France, America, and England, and Sweden. They don't sell anything here. But all the chemical-free cotton, they are import from India. And the machines either from England or Germany or Sweden. And what we are providing our labor. And whatever the production, it goes back to Europe. So therefore, companies can lower their overall cost structure. Because you know that under deindustrialization in the world, that means re-establishment, there are heavy industries in the country where they can get the low-cost labor. Then they improve the quality of functionality of their product is offering. You know that Pitarata things are wonderful. The big thing, whatever it is, they come from Pitarata. That seems that you know that the Lokulunu, Lokuratadil, and all these things are mean outside the country. And we are respecting them. What is happening with the ideology? We are believing they are much better than local production. That is how ideology is working with the globalization. And if I ask a question from you all, what is your future address? The simple answer is, what is your address mean? Your answer is future. We do nothing for today. We do everything for future. Now, if I ask the second question, do you like to go somewhere else other than Sri Lanka to do a job? I'm sure that many of you willing to go. And that is how ideological change. The farmer in Sri Lanka is very poor, but farmer in Western part of the world is very rich. They are happy people, and we are unhappy people. We have a small house, they have a big house. Their road construction, the road system is very good, but our road system is very poor. Their railway system is very good, but ours are not. Their education is very good, but ours is not. So this is the ideological change with the market economy. Okay, that is pre-market economy or pre-market ideology. They change our mindset. And another example, those who are in the Middle East, they are coming from there maybe 1 and 2 years later, but again they are starting to build a very big house in the garden, and there is no more land at home, and the whole land is covered by the houses, then the woman wants to go back to Middle East to earn money. But we are in a problem with finding people to work in our houses. No people, because everybody is willing to go abroad. And that is a part of the ideological change of the people. And it is nicely and systematically doing by the globalization and the pre-market system. So in my personal belief is the market system might be second to the great philosophies in the world. So because why? I will explain it in next time. Why? Because it is promoting individualism. Market mechanism is always promote individualism. We are not worried about someone else. We are worried about ourselves all the time. What does individualism mean? That is refers to philosopher that an individual should have freedom in his own economic and political pursuits. Should not be interfering anyone else to us. With Aristotle, who argued that individual diversity and private ownership are desirable. And do you think that Aristotle is an Asian ideologist, or is in somewhere else in outside Asia? No. Those who we are considering as a theoretician of economics, very much, they are from Europe, but very few from India and Bangladesh and Pakistan. And some of them are contributed from Sri Lanka as well. So anyhow, individual economic and political freedom are the ground rules on which society should be based. Individual economic and political freedom. We are expecting. Does that mean that in our own system, we don't have that economic and political freedom? We had it, but in a different form. And can I ask someone who is moderating this lecture, please remind me the time for the break, because I'm not worried about the time, okay? And therefore somebody has to tell me that this time is okay, because I switch it off my mobile, otherwise some people might ring me and disturbing me for. And the mobile phone is another part of this information communication system, which is always giving us some kind of Eurocentric concepts to changing our ideologies. And some certain point you can ask that whether we have to keep our ideology our own, why we are not going to change. Yeah, you don't need to worry about change yourself. It is changed by the market system all the time. So therefore implies democratic political system and pre-market economy. Now we are practicing democratic political system, which is very hard to understand for us with pre-market economy. I will explain that how it is working to Sri Lanka and other Asian countries. You know that the politics in Asia is not the politics what we can see in Europe. And the democracy is not the democracy what European people use. We have distorted kind of a different kind of democratic system. And this is kind of a critical analysis of ongoing system. And therefore, you are not restricted to think in a way critical. No problem at all. You can think. So you know that what is happening in the market mechanism? In the market, there are two groups of people. Who are they? One is consumers, and another group of people they are calling producers. We have two groups of people in the country, in the market or any country. One is produce. Second group is consume. What consumer is willing to do? They always try their best to maximize their utility. Utility is the satisfaction you gain by using either goods and services. And theoretically, it is illustrated by indifference curve. Indifference curves are giving two types of goods. Then the two types of goods are there, this one and X and Y. And this is whatever the quantity of goods, 75, 100, and 125. And this combination is giving whatever the satisfaction you are gaining by consuming this amount of goods. There is a combination. When you are B, you like to buy more pizza, but less other thing. And in this point, you like to buy Y more, but less X. But that decided by whatever the amount of money you have. And wherever the tangent point of this indifference curve are calling as a utility maximized point. And there is a little bit more explanation on this, but basically try your best to think. This is not for the whole community. We are drawing this diagram only for one consumer. We are not worried about what others are doing. We are not worried whether they are happy or not. But in the beginning, I told you that in Asian ideology, we always care the other people. If you have an experience to be in India, you can see that how Indian people are thinking of the others. And Bangladesh is the situation is the same, and the Pakistan, our own experience, and even Japanese. Yeah, they do. But in European countries, where we have to maintain ourselves. And if they're invited for a birthday party, you have to buy your things to go. Otherwise, they are not providing. Because if you want to be happy yourself, do it your own. And that is what utility maximization of the consumers. Okay? So therefore, pre-market economy or pre-market ideology is always promoting to maximize your own utility, not someone else. And whatever the demand curve and the supply curve we are talking about in economics, that is for individual consumer or individual producer. That is not the someone else, not for the group of people. But we construct reservoir for the many people, not for even present, but for the future generation. So that is the difference ideology between Asia and pre-market ideology. Is it clear with you? Do you have any questions to ask so far? If anybody have any question, please let me know, because I can't see any of you. This is not the physical class, but if you want to learn something, if you have any problem, you have to ask, okay? I don't mind. And the next one is producer interested profit maximization. In the market economy, no one is produced free of charge. Why? Because they are using some economic inputs to produce some goods and services. Initially, they have to use some cost for that. Okay? And this is the total revenue curve here and theoretical explanation here. And this is the total cost is going there. And the difference between total cost and the revenue is the profit. You know that in the beginning, it's loss. But with the time being, with the production is go ahead, you can see that there is a profit in that part. But this is where producer is always try to enjoy, to get the highest profit in their production. So they are not worried about what is happening to the consumer. You know that that is what has happened in the price of rice in Sri Lanka. The big rice mill owners were not worried about the price of the rice. They were maintaining their price. And the sugar, another example in Sri Lanka. So they got for very less tax for the importation, but they sell them for very high profit. See that the people are changing. And they are Sri Lankans. They grow under Asian or Sri Lankan ideology, but still the market is making them a devil sometimes. That is why if you are handling market very well, it's a fancy place. Otherwise it can be a hell. Okay? And then the promoting material development is another thing. Material development is, we are not worried about spirituality. We are not worried about anything other than the consumption, the goods and services. Therefore, the competitive market mechanism promote individual consumer for the utility maximization, and producer always maximize their profit. This is unending desires. Can you think of that when you are happy with consuming the things? If you are eating repeatedly the same thing, that goes with the diminishing utility. But our desires, our wants are never ending. Likewise, you will see that those people who are very rich, they earn more and more. Why? They have desires to earn more. That is why Adam Smith is saying the human being are greediness. Greedy means not just to having a plate of rice, just to collect the things, material things. And the natural resources are transformed to produce goods and services for satisfy consumer and producers' unending desires. What goods mean? That is the output of transforming natural resources. As we know that producer and the consumer they are having unending desires, unending wants. They are never ever satisfied what they have in their hand. So free market economy is allowing us to produce as much as we can. That means we are transforming natural resources into goods and services as much as they can. To control this free behavior, who should involve in? It's the government. When the government is not powerful enough, the production process will go ahead unless we are closing all the country due to the COVID-19. Therefore, the market mechanism promote material development in the society. They are asking us to satisfy our body. You know, the human body is always asking everything what he wants. It doesn't matter whether it belongs to someone else or it is your own. The nature, but the biological nature of the human body is happy with the material development or material satisfaction. And it is obvious that market mechanism is constraint for sustainable development. In that way, we can't discuss about sustainable development under market economy unless the government is controlled very well. However, Asian ideology basically motivates for social, economic, and environmental sustainability with spiritual development. And I'm sure that you did understand that what has the difference between Asian ideology and the pre-market ideology. Is that all right? Does anybody have any questions so far? Now I'm going to go with the point 4 of the discussion today, and the dissatisfaction with globalization. Do you think that when you are referring Asia, we have two parts, South Asia and Southeast Asia. But if you got the Southeast Asian example, they're happy with globalization, but South Asia is unhappy. So China, Japan, Korea, so Singapore. And those people are benefited from globalization hugely. That is what is Xi Jinping, president of China, or prime minister, whoever. He happy with globalization because of why? There are several factors are there. Southeast Asia was success in globalization, while South Asia was bit fail. Because investment flow was favorable for this part of the Asia, and the knowledge exchange, rapid economic growth are evident in China and Japan. And the good thing is rich, even richer. That's a good point. The poor also benefited. That is the equity of the benefits. But unfortunately, if you get Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, perhaps, Sri Lanka, rich are richer, poor are poorest. What is this problem is? Is it the problem of the ideology or is something else? And rural poor receive high wages through the manufacturing industries in China and Japan even. And their technology is advanced. But in Asia, still we are worried about kind of a technology we are going to use. Now you will realize that some people will go against the vaccination in the young people. We have a debate. We can see that whether it is good or bad, but it's still to prevention from the COVID, the worldwide accepted vaccination process. But in Sri Lanka, some people rejected. Never know why these rejections, where from this comes from, that comes from the ideology. And the expanded trade, because trade is beneficial for them, because they export more than they are import, but we import more than what we are export. And the optimism about job prospects, they're happy with the globalization and they're hoping to have more jobs, employment opportunities. And especially in Malaysia, the racial tensions were very high in Malaysia, but with the globalization, people could manage to reduce that. Then the racial tension is a part of the ideology. And the people are grouping into different categories, depending on this culture and the caste and the fairness and many. Yeah? And also fast communication will help a lot. If you get Hong Kong and Singapore, and especially in Japan, they are using their mobile phone just to get in contact or get an appointment. But we in Sri Lanka, we have a long discussion over the mobile phones. We don't use our mobile phone very much for earn money, just for expending. And the knowledge transfer, you will see that China, they are reproducing the English papers for the academics, right? And also in India, very recently, Abdul Kalam was sending many young people for different parts of the world to learn technology and develop their communication and technology. And the knowledge transfer through World Wide Web are heavily used in those Southeast Asia than South Asia. So we have to look at that, why we use technology for what? And you know that in Sri Lanka, we have very much court cases with cyber crimes. So in Vietnam, you will see that all young and people are in the cabinets using web. I don't know whether for the good thing or a bad thing. And everything has two sides. If you get the correct side, you will be okay. If you get the bad side, you will be in a problem. So anyway, globalization has been hugely beneficial to East Asia, but why it is not in South Asia? Because I'm not going to discuss a little bit further about the Southeast Asia because they are very much in a good position. But some observation on Asian economics. I pointed out several, but there are many. Maintaining global interdependence, making local disparity. Our development are very much depend on the foreign investment and the loans. We are very much depend on them on education, on technology, on all the other fuel resources. What else? Politics. Still, our parliament is respect for this, what you call by this, I don't know what is that, they are taking themselves in first, the parliament, Senkole. We are respecting the British government. And also, in the other hand, the malfunction in democracy, market and civil society. I will get that in the back. The democracy doesn't work properly, and the market and the civil society too. I will explain a little bit more in the next slides. And the development policy, which is developed through the parliament, are very much based on the foreign investment plus evidence-based research. We do research, but nobody is using such evidence to develop the policy in this country. Me and Dr. Hemant is struggling to get compost technology to Sri Lanka, because we show that in Japan, we presented paper in Japan, we demonstrate all the ministers and the prime ministers and the president in Sri Lanka. This is the good technology for producing rapid composting, but they rejected our ideas. And they started to make compost, but they failed. Now they are planning to import. So development policy is very much based on foreign investment rather than local knowledge. And the cost of human capital and culture. We are spending a lot of money for education, but no people are staying in the country and they are leaving the country. So do you think that whether such situation can country develop? Why these things are happening? The culturally, ideologically, we are very much changing through this free market ideology. And as I told you that we are always upload versus downloads education system. We are downloading for education. Our own education, our ideology-based education is not there. And you might ask me a question, why it shouldn't be? Sometimes it should be because the democracy and the marketing system and the education is nothing. Comes with the process of the country. It is almost all these things are important. And that is very difficult to plant in our soil because they are developed somewhere else with the developer, with the different context. So, however, encourage productive forces while disappearing social relations. I know that you don't understand what is this productive forces mean, that is factor of production, land, labor, capital. We encourage these things, but we are disappearing our social relations. You know that those who are earning money in the Middle East, their families are here. There are a lot of issues are generated, creating, but money is the thing, which is promoted by free market ideology. And the resource imperative, I will get that into back again because it is very, very important. We are very much happy to work in abroad. You can't see that, but all our resources are flowing to the European countries while we are getting communication and foreign loan instead. And also we have a disease globalization and the terrorism under globalization. Why is it? Because we don't produce these weapons and bullets, but we are the people who use them. That is why Karl Marx is saying the war is crisis of overproduction. What does this mean? They produce, if we don't use it, they don't have any more to produce. So the wars should be there. Then only we can produce again and again. Then you can imagine how wars are generated. So that is what I told you, that there are a lot of things to discuss, but I'm giving some points to think a little bit more after the class. So development decision-making process, this is the number 5 sub-themes of my presentation today, or the discussion. Disappointment in South Asia, especially because due to decision-making process of the development or the resource allocation. We have main three parts: the civil society represented by ourselves, and the democracy is represented by the parliament, and the market where it is operating. And whatever the development or resource allocation decisions are taken by the democratic parliament. We are sending people to the parliament. Sometimes there are some people we haven't selected. Never know they are coming from. The mechanism is developed for the benefit of themselves. And the market sometimes doesn't work properly. However, the democracy and the market has a big competition, right? Market also practice with the competition. Democracy in Sri Lanka very much is practiced with the competition. After 1977, the executive power, the political members has a big competition of each other. But in the next slides, I'm a little bit explain these things. And the democracy is expensive because we have election every 5 years, but we are spending a lot of money for that, but the benefits are very less. And the interdependency policies, you know that whatever the policies are decided in the parliament are expected to get some money from the outside, which we are going to interdepend on the other countries. There is no good programs which is developing with the available money in Sri Lanka or ourselves. But this situation is not very much different from Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, and other Southeast countries. But basically, what the democracy and the market supposed to have welfare maximization of the people. But unfortunately, due to the inefficiency of market and inefficiency of democracy and the fail of civil society, we are not maximizing our own welfare. Instead, we are suffering, right? So maximization of welfare can do in two ways. One is enforced work ownership and weak law enforcement. But we got poor welfare through the democratic policies and the market. Let me a little bit explain if this one is a little bit complicated. What is civil society? Power to the people. Civil society, in my view, powerless and in democracy, biased with politics, and its status, NGO, union, student council, whatever. Disorganized consumers. Civil society is utterly failed to face with the current economic system in the country. Can you see that? The price of the gas is going to be increased, the price of cement, price of milk, and what consumers do, whether they can organize themselves in a local market, some plots of market, if they can reject something for 1 month, what trader can do? But this happens somewhere else. Sometimes if it is in Europe, they always thinking of the price. Why? They are always maximize their individual satisfaction or a utility. So the concept of welfare is state linking democracy and the market system to achieve development. Parliament does not represent interest of civil society. There are many people, but they are not works towards to fulfill our requirement. Therefore, development policy based on the foreign capital, not in the perspective of the people. So therefore, perspective decision-making process is not there. It's not like Southeast Asia, but in Asia, the politically corrupted situation is totally damaged the pre-market economy, and the other way around, it also damaged our Asian ideology too. And when we look at this market, the way we use it and are forced to use it, because market doesn't work the way we are expecting, because we accept opposed to accept the market mechanism in 1977, because in that election, no people asked to introduce market mechanism into the country, but the politicians had done it. So government intervenes in the market, but it is very less. Now see that if the government want to add extra CTB bus to the roads, in the next day you can see that private buses are strike. Government can't do anything. What has happened to the price of rice? Finally, they decide the price in the market because government couldn't do it. Then the powerless government cannot control the market. But in other countries in Europe, that is what I'm telling you, that the market mechanism is not the bad thing if we have a powerful government to control it. Because market doesn't help us to develop a just society. That's the role of the government. So the market cannot coordinate economic activities efficiently. There are a lot of problems come up with the market. But this is true with the market system in Sri Lanka, which is malfunctioned. Now, I don't think that many people in Sri Lanka really understood what is market is for. Whatever the theory we are teaching in the class, it is not happening in outside. Say, for example, the competitive market, we think that we know all the information about the market, but we know nothing. If you want to buy something from Morocco, you have to walk around the long street. You have to visit all the shops to ask the price. But where market is properly working, they distribute the list of price in every 2 times per week. And the people are at home, they decide where the cheap things are. Then straight away they go to the place where they want and they buy the things. So there is no huge traffic at all. But since market doesn't work very well, there are a lot of problems on the roads and the urban areas. In practice, both market and democracy have competition after 1977 in Sri Lanka. So, but what happened to welfare? In 25 years, in the buses, people go in a very huge traffic. And there are a lot of people in the bus. But still, after 50 years, the situation is the same. So where we are driving to? So therefore, as showing in this graph, that the consumer surplus and the producer surplus. In this context, producer surplus is always very high because the market mechanism cannot control by the government. So, discontent with the globalization or are the values dominated by the economics. What are the problems behind it? Environment sacrificed for short-run commercial interests. That is what I told you. We are transforming natural resources, good and service to produce more and more. So environment is sacrificed for the short-run commercial interests, and we are getting a lot of troubles. And no one is addressing that. So reduce access to life-saving medicine. Now look at the situation, even though we are talking about free education and free health. Can you imagine how many people are in the tuition classes and the private medical centers? So where the things are happening? Why we are moving to free medicine to market? The education is the part of the market. Having this free education, but we are really enjoy this expensive education and health system. Where the ideologies change, we are tired with having kind of a free thing. That is the problem. So no compensation provided to developing countries to environmental services, because environment is provide biodiversity and carbon emission. But we don't have any compensation for that. We have, but it is not considerable. And also no protection for traditional knowledge, because we have enough traditional knowledge. With COVID-19, see that people were talk about traditional medicine in Sri Lanka or Ayurvedic medicine. But it goes 1.5 years to get them into the table. I'm not talking about Dhammika Penny, but Ayurveda. We have traditional knowledge for many things. You know that the constructions of dams are expert in world. That is Sri Lanka. But what is happening? And the traditional culture weakened. And some countries, WTO, World Trade Organization rules, make support more difficult. I mean, that is not enough time to explain each and every point more comprehensively, but you can get the point what I'm talking about. And the democratic process undermined. I explain it because IMF is giving very good conditions for us. You know that very recently we got 400,000 billions of rupees from the World Bank or IMF. So we have to repay. Do you know that 85% of GDP already we are repaying as loans? In 2025, we have to earn 106% to repay our loans. But still people are shouting and diyaw, I don't know what. And the people never know that how economy is running. But even though people know, there is no way to change. Why? The democracy is not working very properly. And then some specific observation in Asia. The combination of forces and relations means that the way people relate to the physical world. I already told you that the production process, capital, labor, and the land, and the social relations are directly linked with the physical world. And also it is talking about how people relate to each other. But this is disappearing now. I like to give you one example. Can you imagine, can you think of your wedding? Where are you going to take it? In your home or somewhere else? Yes, definitely somewhere else, in a hotel, in an isolated area. And you're completely separate from the society. You don't know where you are. Even you are sitting around the table, you have no chance to talk because there is a huge music and drumming, and you can't talk each other. Whatever the leftover, no beneficial for any villagers. No one is supporting to painting and preparing kaung and other things at the home. No community, no collective action. So how this ideology has changed, that is because of pre-market ideology. Because it is much easier to get all the services from outside rather than working at home. It's like becoming a takeaway process. The many people like to take away than cooking at home. Why? It is expensive, time consuming, and water bill is very expensive. Electricity is more, gas is very high. So that is why it is much preferred to go for takeaway. Takeaway is another way of marketing system is working properly in the society. And the investment are leading very much to the manufacturing services. The current development concept based on Eurocentric models. They are asking to produce garments, manufacturing, and some civil wars and expatriators. So all these things are happening due to the changing of Asian ideology to production oriented towards service oriented. So therefore ignore the social relation and strengthen the technical relation of the production. We are working to strengthen the technical relation of the production. We completely forget about the social relations. We are not respect to each other. The ideology and the culture is collapsing because of this market mechanism is properly working in the country. So I want to give some simple points without taking the time very much. As I told you that encourage productive forces while disappearing social relations is happening due to the competition. Look at the different period. Pre-independence, we were work cooperatively. Our cooperative labor was commercial labor because we got some people from India. And post-independence, 1948 to 1977, we were very cooperation and state dependency. Later on is changing for waiting to the ship. The government is promised to give everything. Even the post-independence, 1970 to date, corporate was competition. We have no cooperation, but we are compete with others. Overall socio-economic transition in the country is getting individualism through competition. Now, what does it happen? Asian ideology is completely changing into pre-market ideology. That is the influence of globalization in Asian ideology with the context of Sri Lanka. And the labor substitution, the family structure completely changed. In 1977 and after 1977, the role of the family, mother, father, elder son or daughter, younger son or daughter, and what has happened. In the beginning, before 1977, mother was manager and the father was decision maker. But this has completely changed after 1977. Then the mother became a decision maker because she is earning money. Then the father was at home. In many cases, she became a manager. Can you imagine what has happened when there is a lost manager in the company? So whole family, household economy was changing due to the pre-market ideology. And likewise, other members of the family. So this is one of the biggest irreversible change in Asian ideology. So now it is not easy to get back. Right. So this is not the big issue, what we have in the pre-market ideology. Resource imperative. You can see that this part of the global, they are the people who are living in peripheral nations, Latin America, Asia, Africa. And always raw materials goes to, including labor, industrial countries like UK, USA, France, Australia, New Zealand, and we also willing to go. And there we are getting industrial goods and communications and the politics and loans, etc., etc. This concept was developed in 1960s by Andre Gunder Frank, but this is what is exactly happening, and this is what we are calling as a resource imperative. Global transaction from periphery to core. That is why we wish to go somewhere else other than the country, because almost all the things are moving. Look that we don't make vaccination. Vaccinations are coming from USA, UK, China, and other countries. We don't have such. So developed countries need natural and human resources for developing countries. Developing countries need capital, technology, and brain power of the wealthier countries. Developed countries' economics are increasingly depend on the natural and human resources of the developing. That is why we are getting green cards from America. There are many people in Europe, from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and everywhere. You can't see some white people in London sometimes. Almost all dark people are in London. And growing interdependence of nation and their activities, one of the other fostered by the depletion of natural resources as well as overpopulation. And this is the influence of globalization or pre-market ideology. And then I ask the question, this is of globalization and the terrorism. Is it a result of globalization? You can answer yourself sometime later. Yes, it is, maybe. That is what I told you, that not known who produced this COVID-19 and why terrorism is in less developed countries every day. Are we producing those weapons they are used? No, we don't. But the puzzle is who produced, why we are used. That can be another impact of pre-market ideology. worst Asian ideology. So finally, the new way of looking at the contemporary issues due to the globalization for changing Asian ideology. We need to change this, but how we are going to do it? And the issues, contemporary issues, can be categorized into three parts mainly. The democracy-related issues are aging because we had two or three wars, civil wars in the country. The young people died. So now we are in the problem of aging. As a result of this civil unrest, there's a youth uprising. You know that the parliament is representing very old people, but the youngers are outside and they are shouting. And this is not the way. Then they are saying, no, this is the way. And the public tension of party politics. That is another democratic issue. You know, the party politics is suffering. And every day people are telling us different stories, and the public are intention to listen to their whole the story. And the large public sector with high inefficiency, even though the present government is telling us to develop increase the efficiency of government sector, but there is a less efficiency. Freedom for information, but high transaction costs. Thorough information, data, and all these things they are saying free of charge, but it's take long time and searching information and getting them. And the sixth is terrorism. I'm not going to talk that one very much. And the development related, more foreign earnings from the Middle East, less from Europe. Our Middle East women get more money to Sri Lanka, but educated people in Europe, they don't send. We spend, they don't. More for education, we're spending, but more brain drain. People are moving a lot. More women employment, less family satisfaction. Now, women employment rate is very high, but we are getting less family satisfaction. More teaching, more technical tabs, tablets, technology, tabs, but less creative people. More mobile phone, less communication. We never know that. People don't talk where they really want to do the things, and more and less and less. And the market related, you know that we destroy our forest, then elephant come and eat our salt at home. And the more vehicle and late arrival at home. There are plenty of vehicles. We are saying that we are happy with the vehicle, but you can't come to home at time. More harvest, but less price. Prostitution, begging, drugs, selling are rather profitable. That is what pre-market ideology changed. Free books and clothes, but no children at the school. Most advanced level school children they are not in the school, they are in the tuition class, but everything is free. More education facilities in the state school and more tuition class, private education and education under privatization. And the microfinance trap. People are getting money, but this they have to pay a lot. So this is my conclusion in the last minute. And 1 minute more to 4:30. Then the Asian ideology encouraged holistic system approach, ensuring sustainable resource use, maximizing social welfare together with spiritual values. I explained very well in the beginning. But free market ideology places too much emphasis on the individual rather than community. Yeah. And in practice, Asian ideology gradually changing towards Eurocentric market mechanism. We and you, we are transforming gradually. Malfunctioning decision-making process leads towards global interdependence in Asia. It is not acceptable to reform or criticize Asian society slowly on the basis of liberal democratic forms developed in Western society. Therefore, modern political system in Asian societies should be grounded in the specific Asian cultures in which they are to be situated. Yeah, I am end up with on time. And thank you very much for listening my very, very bad voice, perhaps, because I continuously talk 1.5 hours. And now it is your time to ask any question for clarification or comments. Thank you very much.
So you mentioned that the racial tensions in Malaysia reduced through globalization. So, sir, why was it that it couldn't do the same for racial tensions in South Asian countries such
You
as
know that the Malaysia and some maybe in Bangladesh, the situation is the same. They are very highly religious based. And you know that some communities in the world, they are not allowed to work in the open economy. They have restricted by their own through the cultural practices. But with the open economy, they had to go for the garment factories to work because they started garment factories, then they allowed to go to the foreign countries. And Bangladesh and India and Malaysia and even Vietnam and Chinese, much little, they are everywhere in the world. Their restrictions over because with the money, the man was promoted to go here and there. So in Sri Lanka, this situation is happening, but still there are some people, they're restricted due to the cultural barriers. That is what has happened. That we can do it, but the people have to change. But again, we have to see the positive and negative impact of changing is in ideology directly to responding to the free market ideology.
thank you, sir.
Anything else?
Sir,
Yeah.
with globalization, can we go back to the self-sufficient economy of Gamay Ponsule? What is
You
your
know
opinion?
that it is not easy to establish the existing situation. I mean, past situation, it's not easy to get into back. That is simply because of the ideology and the way of thinking of the people are completely changed. Now, do you think that those who are working in the Middle East, once they come back, or those who are working in the garment factories, once they come back to the village, whether they are going back to paddy fields, they don't. Because you know that the human body is a wonderful thing. Once you change something, it is not easy to get it back. Why? The material development is the material good and services are always helping us to satisfy our mind. But what is the opposite of it? Is spiritual development. What is that Buddhism and all the other religions says is spiritual development. They are saying give up the things and be happy. The same thing. The market is saying take it and be happy. And the ideology and the religion, no, religion might say give up, give someone. We are calling it as a dan and be happy. See the opposite. So the problem is, especially in Sri Lanka, like country like Sri Lanka, our ideology is give up the things. But what is happening in the market, take the things. So we are in a dilemma, whether we should give up, whether we should take. Now look at the drunkards in this country. The women are totally against with the drinking people. Why? They don't know how to drink. But in Europe, they drink together. No problem at all. So once you use it, the transformation of the human being takes long time. But unfortunately, available resources in this country into the development process are already built up. That is our wealth. That is our wealth of nation. But the different political parties, due to this influence of free market ideology, they completely neglect that available resources, and then they are thinking of to be a Singapore. But now Singapore completely passes, and Bangladesh is going ahead, and Vietnam also going ahead. So what happened to Sri Lanka? We are still far away from our aspirations. That is what I'm asking. China, Japan, Russia, Singapore, Malaysia, Mahathir Mohamad is completely changed the country. And they are changed their ideology first. Then the Mahathir Mohamad, when he started to develop the countries, he said that I'm not going to take any money from IMF World Bank. But our people, you can listen over the past few weeks. Our former prime minister is telling that why don't we get some money from World Bank and solve the issues? We are in the trap. Okay?
The present government is trying to return to self-sufficient economy. Will it success with globalization?
No, well, you know that our capacity is competing with the import production. If we succeed to do that, then we can. But in 1960s, if we started such industries in this country, we could produce something for the low cost. But the price of potato of Pakistan is much cheaper than price of potato in Noor area, because our prices is very high. You know that the globalization is helping us to integrate it. But if there is a honest administrator in this country, since we have all the resources except this petrol and diesel and gas, we have enough resources. If you are traveling all over the world, you can see that other countries are lacking of natural resources, but Sri Lanka is a greener country. Having that resources, but still we don't use. We can go. But first of all, we have to change our ideology, because we are always happy to get the things from outside. Did you hear that the last month or 1 month before, our politicians were talking about the underwears in this country? So do you think that without milk, whether we will die? No, we don't. But can you make your mind? No, you can't. So that is the matter of ideology. Yeah, we can. I don't say anything. We can't. We can. But we have to change our mind. So anything else? No, I'm happy to answer for your question if you really have any questions to ask. That is actually the education in university. You don't need to worry about listening to us. You have to argue with us. You have to comment on us. That is how science is making. If somebody is repeating the same thing in the books, because I got the points good from the books, but I developed my own. The lecture is developed my own, taking some point here and there.
Sir?
Yeah.
Sorry, can I go?
Excuse me, sir. What is your opinion how to change this ideology, Sri Lanka ideology?
You know, then I can give you one example. As my experience, making aware of them is not very easy. Now, when we started this Kandalamara hotel in Dambulla, it was huge public voice not to do it because it is environmentally damaged. But what has happened? We build it up. Now nobody is talking about Kandalamara hotel. It is running very well. It is environmental friendly. Nothing is happening. And the second one, when we are going to start the highways in Southern Highway, some people were shouting, and the North Highway again. But now people are using highways and Kandalamara hotel and everything. I think in Europe, we can make people aware by discussing. But Sri Lanka, you can't discuss with the people. The similar situation in Bangladesh and even the Indians, because I have much experience being with the Europeans and the African people and Vietnamese and etc. etc. So Nepalis and Bangladeshis and Pakistanis, Indians, Sri Lankans are not easy to discuss. No way. But once we are practicing, they realize that yes, it is good. And now they are changing their mind. Now they are using highways and Kandalman or any other things like that. I think the practical example, involving them into use it, then they are changing. Now we have to think about a huge process on it. And even the university students, can you discuss and ask them to study English? Because it is international language, whether we like or not. But to those who are coming to the university in the first year, they are going back without the same. So in my case, I born in Anuradhapura, in far away from Anuradhapura, 22 kilometers away. I haven't seen any teachers in English to teaching English until I come to the grade 7. I couldn't write my name even Kularathne. And I never learned 3 things in a proper way. One is English, second is computer science, computer, and third one is driving. I did my own. we can change, we can do. I never ever believe nothing can be happen under the sun and moon. Yeah, we can do. Anything else? Did I answer your question? I think so. Tirani?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Sir, you mentioned that India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, that they have their own types of democracy. But like my question is about the democracy that like sort of existed before these countries had the chance to develop their own form of it. So like I've heard that the democracy that Britain introduced to Sri Lanka, that it didn't suit the multi-ethnic nature of this country, and that gave way to.
Yeah, I understand what you're asking. You know that the market mechanism, democracy, and some other things, technology, and almost all these things are introduced by someone else to the nation, especially to Sri Lanka. Democracy, because we were under colonized, right? The British.
Yes.
So with the freedom, they introduced the political system for the country, but still they keep their touching hand with these countries. So they are the political system, whatever the democracy they introduce, they got extra benefits from introducing that. Okay, so our democracy, because we were under ruling by the king, but some certain point, if people realize that the king, now look at that, the king is still in Thailand, king is still in Japan, king is still in England, but Japan is well-developed industrial countries, which is very much favoring with free market economy. America and Japan are very much suit with free market economy. They're practicing very good, perfect competitive market than the other countries. It is not in like in Australia and England. But my question is that we got the things. It doesn't matter whatever it is, but we are fear to touch for changing the way we like. Still we are practicing. So my idea is that things should be come up with the process rather than import, because we can't plant it very well in our own soil. But unfortunately, we got that now. Now I think it is not nicely fit with our aspirations, because in the beginning, in Sri Lanka, people were developed through perspective development. The concept of perspective development means we did what we really want. But now we did what they really want, because they are giving money, they are advising us, they are consulting us. You know that whatever the big projects, the Sri Lankan experts are not consult very much. Why? Money is coming with them and they are the advisor, but sometimes it is not really suit with us. So that's the problem. But again, the democracy in Europe are very, very fashionable. The president in many countries, you can see that the president of France, he is taking a hiring vehicle to visit some places. And the Finland, the 16 years old girl is the president of Finland, or prime minister of Finland. But do you have any chance to do that? The freedom is the democracy of them. But for us, democracy is a barrier, the big trouble for us. Once Amartya Sen is saying that the 21st century, whatever that we got, most important thing is democracy. Because you know why? Under colonized, we were in a big trouble. Compared to that, this democracy is much better than colonization and living under colony. That is happening. But now it's the time to change the way we want. That is why we are talking about the constitutions, but nothing is happening. But you know the why? It also has a big influence of these systems to not to change the existing constitution, because if we change it, the resource imperative, the resource flow from periphery to core can be damaged again. That is what has happened in Malaysia. That is what has happened in Japan. That is what has going to happen in Vietnam, because we are not going to depend on them anymore. But world development model is promoting interdependency on them. Okay. Anything else? There are 100 to 65, 70 students are there, isn't it? I don't know. So good. It's a good communication and also good question you ask. That is what's supposed to be the university education. I'm really happy with that. I'm really happy if you are asking question, because I have my mind many things, but you have to raise the question, then only I can say. Otherwise, given period of time, I can't talk everything what I have in my mind. So asking questions, it helps to expand in your knowledge.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to deliver the vote of thanks on behalf of the students of the short course on cultural linkages towards an Asian ideology. I would like to thank our lecturer, Professor N.G. Kularathne, for sharing his time and knowledge with us and for delivering this important lecture amidst his busy schedule. Sir, your address set the tone for this course by clearly indicating the impact of globalization on Asia. We are blessed to have you contribute this course. Next, I wish to thank Dr. Hemanta Premaratne and all other staff at KDU who have brought these lectures together. Thank you. Last but not least, I thank all participants from our university for joining us today. Your participation has made this lecture a successful event, and I believe it has provided you with an insight into the globalization on Asia. To conclude, let me once more express my gratitude to Professor Kularathne for delivering today's lecture. Sir, it is an honor to have you with us, and your time and effort are deeply appreciated. Thank you, sir.
Okay, you are all very welcome.